Hey there, my name's Brashler. In this video, I'm just going to be creating a mix. I have the set of audio that I've been using on the X32, and I haven't been using it on the Behringer Wing yet, which means I don't have a bass file to start off of. So everything is blank. Everything is starting at 0, and I just need to dial in this mix to create a couple videos on the Behringer Wing for you guys about how to get subgroups working and a bunch of different videos here in the future. But what I need to do first is I need to get these audio tracks sounding good on this board before I can start making those other videos. So I figured I'd just go ahead and let the records flow, and you guys just watch me, and I'd be poking around on the board and getting these things set, and I'll explain my process throughout. If you're brand new to my channel, I'm all about helping you feel more confident in your production gear no matter where you're starting from. So let's actually go ahead and dive into this. So this is going to be my blank session here, so I can go to my routing and show you my sources here. So we have electric guitar 1, electric guitar 2, both of those are stereo. We have an acoustic guitar, bass, keys 1, keys 2. We also have tracks sandwiched in between. We have 4 vocals, and then we have a kick out, kick in, snare top, snare bottom, tom 1, 2, 3, snare sample, and overheads. And so I have it laid out on my board. Now, with the Behringer Wing, we can do stereo channels per channel or mono channels per channel. And we can do that by linking these things within my sources. So if we go and click on my electric 1, we can see that that's set to stereo. If we go and see my bass, that is set to mono. So if you wanted to create a stereo pair, you can go and select a channel and you can press stereo or mono. And so you can basically switch between these. We also have an option for mid-side, but I'm not going to be talking about that today. So we have all these channels, and these are my channels that I'm going to have them laid out in. So guitar 1, guitar 2, acoustic, bass, keys 1, tracks, keys 2, vocal 1 through 4. And then down here on my second layer, I'll have my kick out, kick in, snare top, snare bottom, snare sample, tom 1, 2, floor, and my overheads. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and press play, and I'm going to start dialing these things in. Here we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is dial in my gain settings. I do feel like this is going to be too hot, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim this down. My goal is to get their loudest about right where we get into the yellow on this. So I think I'm going to have to trim this down about 4. And then if we pull up my guitar 2, this guy's too loud. So I'm going to dial him down just a little bit. Yep. And we got my acoustic. Okay. See, acoustic's a little on the loud side, so I'm going to trim him down. And let's see here. What else do we have? No bass yet. We got keys. So I'm going to dial him down just a little. Because again, I'm trying to get it right in that unity gain, which is going to be that -20 mark. Okay, we have some bass now. So actually the bass is not loud enough, so I'm going to dial him up just a little bit. There we go. Perfect. And we got tracks. Yeah, that's about right. And then we got keys 2. That's great. Vocal 1.
He won't fail.
I'm actually going to dial him back just a little bit, down 2 dB. Here's vocal 2. Not singing yet. She is. Yep, there's vocal 2. Okay. A little loud. Okay. And so we have -2. I'm just going to go -2 across the board here for these vocals because they were all set at the same gain on the transmitters. Boom, and get that there. All right, kick drum. Okay. Now, the way that I set my drums, I actually set them a little bit louder than that -20 unity gain. I actually am trying to get the most gain out of these without clipping. So I'll actually go a little bit louder. And so we can see that I'm just trying to dial in that -12 there for this kick drum. So there's the kick in. Now that is too loud. So I'm going to bring him down. There we go. That's better. Snare. Probably come up just a little bit, actually. Of course, it got to a quiet part. Let's go back to our card and see if we can. There we go. Go back here. So we got my snare. We can do tom. Probably pull him down just a little. 2 dB down. Bring him up just a little bit. Snare's going. So here's the snare bottom, which is way too loud. There we go. It's getting better. All right, so there's tom 1. Here's tom 2. Actually, tom 2 is a little quiet. Dial him up just a little bit. Okay, and then we have a snare sample in there. See how the overheads are sounding here. Okay, and so if I mute everything, woo, that sounds great. I'm gonna bring it up a little bit because it was only getting right underneath 12 and I was wanting it to be right at 12. Okay, so now that we've set all of my gains for all my channels, the next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and set high pass and low pass filters on my channel. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and start from the beginning of this track, and we'll go ahead and start getting these things set. So the first thing is my electric guitar. I am not going to need a lot of low end out of this. To be honest, there's not really much need for some of the low end that's down there. So I usually will set my low cut or my high pass filter about 90 hertz. So I'm gonna set that on both of the guitars. So I'll go ahead and select this guy and we can turn on my low cut. Right there. Okay. Yep. And we have my acoustic. This guy does not need any low end. In fact, it's not really putting out any low end. So, I mean, you can see on this RTA that it's not even really doing anything under there. So it's actually a pretty bright guitar. I don't love the sound of that. Keys. I mean, so both of these keyboards, this one definitely has a lot of sub in it, which I'm going to keep, but what I'm gonna end up doing is I am gonna put in a low cut, but I'm going to end up having that pretty low. So I'm gonna have this down in the 25 hertz. Now by doing this and having a 25 hertz low cut, it's actually saving a little bit of energy on the subwoofers just so that they can really be set for just getting that really good thump. So I'm actually gonna roll this off to 30. And so then the keys, which is more of a piano sound, isn't getting super low. So I am going to place a low cut and have this about 90 as well. Okay, and so we have bass guitar. There's just a little bit of information that I don't love that's in the 40 below. And so for this particular bass and this particular music, I am going to place in a low cut, about 45, 48. Now, obviously, that's too high. That's not really doing anything, but right here, it's not affecting it. Okay, let's listen to the tracks. Also pretty bright. Now there is going to be low end information in these tracks. So again, I'm going to put in a low cut, but I'm going to dial that down to about the 30 hertz mark. Okay? Now, on the bass guitar, I can actually dial in a high cut because I don't need all this information that's happening up here. So I'll actually dial in a high cut to about there. Okay. In fact, I could dial in a little bit of a high cut on some of these guitars. It already has a bit of a high cut in the guitar itself, but we can just do it for fun. Perfect. All right, so then what we can do is we can move on to the vocals here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the beginning of this song again. And so my vocal 1, I know for a fact that I'm going to dial in a low cut on all of these. And I'm going to set this probably in the 130s. Now he is singing higher in his vocal range, and so I'm going to set this to be the point where it's going to be good for all the songs that he's singing in this set, not just this not just this song specifically. If I was trying to set a high cut, a low cut for him right now, I mean, it would probably be a little bit higher because he's singing higher in his vocal range, but I wanted to make sure that I get all of the songs in a good spot. Now we can do my vocal 2.
I've still got joy in chaos.
So 145.
I've got peace that makes no sense. So I won't
this would be too high, and that's not doing anything.
I'm not held by my own strength, 'cause I build my life on Jesus.
Now you can hear some low end from the bass. You can actually see it right there. So
why would he fail?
Okay, and then we can move on to the drums. So here's the kick drum, and actually I always put in a low cut on the kick. And that is because, again, I'm trying to save that subwoofer energy to be the main fundamental of the kick, not sub-bass that the kick isn't producing. So what I'll end up doing is I will dial this in to about 30 hertz, maybe up to 40, depending, and I can actually get a bigger kick drum sound, a punchier kick by doing this. And then what I'll do is I'll add in some low end into this and have a little bit of a lift here, but I'll dial in this low cut. Just like that. And so then we have our kick in. There's not much low end information, but we're gonna do a low cut on this guy. And the kick in, the kick out, I can actually put in a high cut on this guy. So we're gonna go high cut to just get rid of some of the cymbals. And then what I'll end up doing is I'll boost up some of this where the click is. Just like that. So here's a kick in. Again, I'm going to dial in a high cut on this guy. Okay, and then I'm going to move back to another part of the song here. I'm not thrilled with the snare sound. But let's go ahead and set our low cut. And there's really not much information that's happening below this 150. Okay, here's snare bottom. Again, not really much information happening below 150. So the benefit of having a low cut is we can dial in any subwoofer energy and get that out of there. So like subwoofer rumble that's happening into that mic. Here's the snare sample. So I'm going to put in a low cut on this guy. About the 90. And let's go back to a spot where he's actually playing. Okay, here's tom 1. So with toms, I will still have a low cut on them. And I'll actually also have a high cut. Basically trying to get rid of the cymbal bleed. He actually hasn't hit the toms at all here, but there we go. So obviously the floor tom is going to produce more low-end information than the tom 1. So as we can see here, my tom 1 is at 90, my tom 2 is at like 70, and my tom 3, which is my floor tom, is about 50. So that's basically going to go lower on those toms. So the low cut is just going to be progressively lower on all of these toms. And we also have my overheads here. So let's go ahead and pull up that section again where it is a little bit louder. Okay, and so on my overheads, I'm also going to apply a low cut because I don't need this information in it. Okay, so from here, without doing anything else, I can actually get a pretty good mix off of this. So I can go in and start playing this from the beginning.
Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus. He's never let me down.
Now, as I'm listening to this, the first thing that I'm noticing is that I really need to add in some compression, but I'm going to dial in some EQ first. So specifically, I'm going to move to the drums on my EQ just because I'm in a drum mood right now. So let's go back to the spot where the drums are really going. And we're going to start with the kick here. This is a tubby sound, and I don't love that on kicks, so I usually will pull that out. And so if I turn off the EQ, that's a lot punchier of a kick, as we can hear. There's not much that's happening in here, but we can go with a wider cut, and we can just pull that down as well. And so this is where that snappiness of that kick is. Okay, and so then we want to add in the other kick, the kick in. Okay, so I can hear a lot of that gross papery sound, which is right here. I don't want that in my mix. And actually, this doesn't have much low end, so I'm going to go ahead and add in some low end. Okay, so if we add both of these in, yeah. Yep. Okay, snare. Not great. Okay, so first thing is I'm going to take my band 2 here, narrow Q, and we're going to find this frequency. That. Ugh. So terrible. But I am going to add in I don't think I found that frequency. So let's go to 2 again. It's right there. Here, we'll go back. It's just this ringing frequency that I don't like on this tom, or on this snare drum. That. Okay, and then there's another frequency that I'm hearing that I also don't like. I don't think I've used 1 yet, so. That. Let's go ahead and pull that out too. That's much better. Here's without. And here's with. Much better. And we can add in a little bit of sparkle if we want, just a little bit of attack. Go back. So. Okay, and so then we can go ahead and add in the snare bottom. But something that you'll notice is when we added those in, all the low end went away. And that is because my snare top is pointing down, the snare bottom is pointing up. So these are out of polarity with each other. So we need to flip the polarity on one of the mics to match the other. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to our snare bottom and we are going to invert the polarity, which is right here. So once we do that, and I'll do this while he's playing so you guys can hear it. Okay, invert. Brings in a little bit more of that low end. Here we go. Okay, so the snare bottom. Want to get rid of that. We can actually add in a little bit of low end. Not much, though. There's not much there. This guy, we can dial in that snappiness of the snares. So this is too low. It's too high. So right in here, that's where the natural sound of those snares are. Okay. Perfect. So then we also have tom 1 here. Oh, which we already dialed in, that's right. We have tom 1 here. Add in some EQ. I know I'm going to want to do a boost in the low end. And I know that I'm going to want to cut some of the sound of this. That sound. Here we go. And then this sound in here, I'm also going to want to cut. Of course, he's not hitting the toms. Let's see. It's not really hitting anything yet, but let's dial in the guesstimated EQ on the rest of these toms real quick. Here we go. That's the spot. Okay. Want to get rid of that. Floor tom actually sounds pretty great, but that sound I don't want. And then this, we can get more attack. Just by boosting that a little bit. Okay. Okay, that was actually a great spot to go from. What was that, 3? Let's see. Yeah, that's great. Okay, here's my overheads. And on my EQ on these guys, I'm going to want to bring in this low shelf and just reduce a little bit of low end. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to boost up kind of a narrow Q. And I'm just going to search for something in the cymbals that I find to be painful. And honestly, these mics sound great. Okay, so now let's go ahead and listen to that spot again. Go ahead and pan some of these toms. Okay, so add in some guitars here. Sounded pretty good so far. Liking the sounds of this. However, I need to dial in some compression. So I'm going to go ahead and do that next. And so we're just going to go back to that one section again of that 3 on this marker. And I'm going to dial in some compression on this guy. So we're just going to use the wing compressor for all of these just to keep it cohesive. And on my kick, I'm going to have an attack anywhere between 20 and 30 milliseconds. My hold time is going to be nothing. And then my release is going to be anywhere between like 80 and 100. And one thing that you can do is you can crank this down all the way, put the ratio at 100, and just listen to it, and dial in this attack. So with this, I don't hear any attack. But as we start opening this up, you kind of start hearing a bit of that kick drum coming through. And right at 40 was actually a great spot. So, okay, and so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this ratio back to 5:1, and we're gonna set my release time to about 50, 70. And I'm not looking to do a ton of compression, just a little bit. And then once we do that, we just need to dial in the makeup gain just a little bit. So here it is without. There we go. So similar timings. Okay, so we'll go back to our kick drum here. So we got those two. Now toms definitely need compression. So I'm gonna dial in some tom compression, basically do the same compression over all of them, 5:1. Go back to that one spot with the 3. There we go. Okay, so our attack, gonna be in the 20s, 20 to 30s. My hold time is gonna be nothing, and then my release time is probably gonna be about 100. Floor tom, gonna be similar, so dial this back down to about 35. Back to that number 3 here again. The goal of the compression on these toms is to elongate the sustain of this drum. And by having this compressor, we're compressing the initial note and then letting the volume kind of come back up with the tail end of that tom hit to elongate that tom sound, which is the goal that we're looking for. So -23, -25, so I'm just gonna get this about that same spot. And then we just need to dial in a little bit of makeup gain. Okay. Overheads, you can compress if you want to, so we can go ahead and just dial in some 10:1 compression on this. Have our knee at 0, go back to that spot. Have it a little bit more of snare drum settings because our snare drum is going to be the loudest thing on our overheads, typically. There we go. Yeah. That snare sample adds a nice touch to it. Okay. Okay, so now we can go ahead and add in the rest of this band here. Okay, so one thing I'm noticing right off the bat is how bright these tracks are. There, okay, so I want to have you listen to this. Now you can imagine that these tracks at a very loud volume is just going to be a little bit on the painful side. So what I'm going to do is actually go and use the tilt EQ. And so we can go into our tilt EQ and we can actually tilt this down. And so I can tilt the amount of either treble versus bass or bass versus high end. So if we go back to that section, okay. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to dial in my vocals. And I already know some of the EQ settings that I'm going to set on these vocals. And I'm just going to dial them in right now before I even have them start singing. So what I like to do is I like to have my low shelf cutting out about 2 to 3 dB of low end. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have that set about 8 to 900 on my low shelf, just like that. And then 600, this is an area of the vocal that I don't like. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this around 600, and I'm going to cut out another 2 to 3 dB. And then sometimes some of the vocals will need a little bit more brightness. And so if that's the case, then what I'll do is I'll just go in with a wide bandwidth, so something around 1. And I can go ahead and add in some in the 3 to 4, maybe all the way up to 6K range. Now, if you want to add a lot of airiness to a vocal, if you're mixing in broadcast, this is something that's really beneficial, is you can add in air. Now, air is just a certain sound to a vocal that we can add up in the plus 10K range. Just if you're mixing live, be careful with this because you might get into a feedback situation and that would be bad. So this is going to be a starting EQ setting that I will set on these vocals, is just this. And so I'm just going to copy and paste this to the rest of my vocals. So we can go up in the tools, we can press copy, and I can select my destination. And we can go there and we can press copy, confirm. And so we're copying my vocal from 1 to 2. And so I'm going to do the same thing, copy and copy. Okay, so now if we go back and look, all of my vocals have the same EQ curve here. Now, the next thing that I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to use a compressor for my vocals. Now, I love the Behringer Wing because it has the 1176 built into the channel. So there's no need anymore to go out to the effects rack built into the console. You can do it in the channel here. So I'm going to end up using the 76 limiter amp, which is the Ultimo compressor. If you guys are used to the Behringer X32, I'm going to dial this in on every single vocal channel. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. I'm going to set my attack to a 3, and I'm going to set my release to a 7. Now, the way that the 1176 works is the higher the number, the faster it is. The lower the number, the slower it is. That's both for attack and release. So in this case, I have a very fast release and a medium slow attack. And so then the next thing that happens is the threshold of this compressor is set. It's limited. And what happens is we turn up the gain of our volume, And if we want more compression, we turn our input up in volume, which brings it up above that threshold point. And then we would counter that with turning our output down. If we wanted to have less compression, we would dial back the input and dial up the output so that we can keep that same gain going into this compressor and out of this compressor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a section of the song and just be listening to the vocal here. And let's go.
Firm foundation.
Loud.
The rock on
So that's probably too
which I
much.
stand when everything around me is shaking. I've never
There we go.
been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus. He's never let me down.
And so, again, the goal of a compressor is to not add volume, it's to have it sound the same volume after, but just be more contained into one little package.
He won't.
And so my ratio settings on my vocals is typically 12:1 is the spot that I love.
He won't fail. He won't fail.
Perfect. All right, let's see if I can copy this guy. So we're going to copy, and we're going to be pasting it here.
Sing this.
And it
Over
works.
your
So
situation,
copy,
whatever it
confirm, copy, confirm. All right, so now we can add in the rest of these vocals
He won't
and see
fail.
how they're feeling.
Rain came with again.
He's never let me down. He's faithful in generations. So how would he
Now, something that you'll notice, there's a lot of background noise. So next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add in a gate. Now, inside of our gate setting, if you go to the gate model, there is the source extractor, which is the PSE 545. I love this thing. This thing is amazing. So what we can do is we can set how much of gain reduction we want to have happen with these channels. So I'm going to go ahead and set that to be 12 as just a good starting point. And I'm going to change this to source extractor, again on this channel, and our main vocalist, same thing. And so we're going to have 12 dB on all of them. And then what we can do is we can set our threshold to be for where we want this to actually start gating off. And so if we go to the beginning of this song, we can start listening.
Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking.
Just like that.
I've never been more
All we have to do
glad
is just set this
that I
threshold to a
put
point
my
where
faith
when he's
in
not singing, it
Jesus.
starts going away.
He's
And then when he is singing,
never let
it opens
me
up. If we
down.
have this set too high,
Faithful through
you'll notice that he is
generations.
singing, but it's not opening up all the way.
So why would he fail now? He won't.
Perfect. So negative 14.5. So I'm going to dial that in for the rest
Still
of
got
them
joy. Sing it out.
and see how
I
that
still
works.
got joy in chaos. I've got peace that makes no sense. So I won't be going under. I'm not held by my own strength, 'cause I built my life on Jesus. He's
So if we go to a spot
never let
later
me
in the
down.
song,
He's faithful.
we can see that these PSEs are still working pretty well.
He won't fail. He won't fail.
So we can see the red gate lights down here went on when they stopped
I
singing.
want you today to sing this.
But that opens up right when he's
over
starting to
your
go.
situation, whatever it is.
All right, so at this point, I think this bass has, yep, it does have a hum. I remember this having a ground issue. So we can go ahead and use the source extractor again on this bass. So we can go up to 20 dB down, just like that. And then if he goes to play, it will open up. So we can do that. So let's go ahead and actually get the rest of these going here. Let's go from the beginning. I'm happy with where this is sitting so far.
Christ is my firm foundation.
Other than a few sour notes, but that's all right.
The rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. Still got joy, sing it out. I've still got joy in chaos.
You can pan some of the vocals
Got
here.
peace that makes no sense. So I won't be going under. I'm not held by my own strength, 'cause I built my life on Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful in every season. So why would he fail now? Listen, he won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. Oh, he won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. Just want you today to sing this over your situation, whatever it is. He won't fail. Rain came, wind blew, but my house was built on you. I'm safe with you. I'm gonna make it through. Sing the rain came. Rain came, wind blew, but my house was built on you. I'm safe with you. I'm gonna make it. Oh, the rain came. Oh, the wind blew.
My house was built on.
My house was built on you. won't fail. He won't fail. He won't fail.
There we go. So that's my whole mix. So now in the next couple of videos that I'll be releasing, you'll see a lot of these settings, and I'll be building more and more off of this mix. So obviously, I still have work that I can do on this mix. You know, I can still put all of these instruments into subgroups, which I will have a video coming out here soon on that. And as well as my drums going into a parallel drum bus to really create this massive amount of sound coming in on the drums. So I hope this video was helpful for you today. I know that this was just kind of non-scripted and a little bit longer than my typical videos, but I hope that you pull away a couple things that you can try out on your console with some of the settings that I was dialing in here. Now, obviously, some of the settings that I set here today are not going to work on every single instrument out there. You know, this snare drum that was in this particular situation with these particular mics, the EQ settings that I set on that snare drum are not going to sound the same on your snare drum. So you're going to need to find that fundamental that you love and then find that really annoying tone and pull it down. And that's going to be a different frequency on your drum than it was on mine. So keep that in mind when you are applying some of these settings, but I hope that this was helpful for you. If you do happen to have any questions, make sure to post those in the comment section down below. Also, if there's a video that you're hoping that I will make on the Behringer Wing or really any of the other mixers that are out there, please put that in the comment section down below, as I'm always looking for more videos to make that are going to be helpful for you. If you haven't already, make sure to check out my website at drewbrashler.com. Otherwise, have a great day.